Hello, I'm Tim Nanoff, AOTA's Director of Federal Affairs, and I'm here with Ralph Cole, AOTA Legislative Representative, and we wanted to do a little role-playing with you. We received some feedback from previous participants in Capitol Hill days in regard to what to expect, and we wanted to just provide a little bit more detailed information with a video about exactly what you can expect and how the interaction is likely to go. From what we know about sitting in on previous visits and for participating in visits ourselves, we know that there are some common mistakes and some common real strengths that advocates can bring to a meeting. And so first we are going to role play a problematic meeting where we make some mistakes along the way, and then hopefully our second role play will be one which is a little bit smoother, a little bit more professional, and a little bit more of what we're going to be shooting for. So Ralph is going to be the congressional staffer on Capitol Hill, and I am going to be a occupational therapy advocate. So with that, we will come in and start the meeting. Hi, Tim Nanoff with American Occupational Therapy Association. How are you?
Johnny Hillstaff. Pleasure to meet you.
Well, I just wanted to stop in and see you today. I'm a constituent of yours, and I just wanted to check in and see what you knew about occupational therapy.
Well, thank you for coming in. I have a good friend who's a PT, and I'm guessing it's very similar to that.
It's not like PT at all. There's nothing. It's not like PT at all. People mistake occupational therapy for physical therapy all the time, and it's really something that frustrates the average person. So it's not something that we like to talk about related to that. Occupational therapy is much bigger, much broader, and focuses more on function and getting people back to do the things they need rather than just strength and mobility. So I wanted to talk to you today about a couple of important issues. The Medicare therapy cap, it's HR 50 and 46 S 829, and what it does is it repeals the limits on occupational therapy. Is that something that your boss could support?
I would need to know a little bit more about the issue.
Well, I can give you this information here, and if you have any questions, you can follow up with me or the American Occupational Therapy Association. I also wanted to talk to you about the Medicare Home Health Flexibility Act, and this is an act where AOTA is supporting because occupational therapy isn't allowed to be a qualifying service, and they can't open cases, and they're treated differently than PT and speech, and we don't think that that's really appropriate. So this is an issue that's been around for a long time. It's really important to occupational therapists, and I would like your boss's support in changing this legislation and making occupational therapists eligible to open cases for Medicare beneficiaries.
I'll have to take a look at that.
All right. Do you have any questions for me?
Not at this time, but thank you for coming in and taking the time to meet.
All right. We're going to stop there. So there were maybe some pretty obvious things that weren't quite exactly what they should be in that interaction.
I think the biggest thing for you to realize when you're doing these meetings is that you have to take enough time to concisely convey the point you're trying to get across. And Tim, he was coming a little rapid fire. As a staffer, it would be a little bit overwhelming to get kind of jumbled information without any specifics, without any background, without any additional information to really understand and be able to make an educated, opinion about how my boss may or may not come across on an issue. So he went from one issue right to the next without really giving me a chance to process any of the information that I was given. So that was probably one of the more glaring weaknesses in that presentation. And there was no real interaction with me. His face was right down into the page, and he was rattling off, kind of incongruous talking points that didn't really make any particular sense in the way that he was really conveying it.
I think we had a problem in presentation and also a problem in detail. It's important to know a little bit more than just the ask that you're having there. And we're providing you with this information, and we're going to have a call on September 11th at 7 p.m. where you can actually ask more questions. We'll provide more detail. So that kind of follow-up is important. The other thing is in discussion of occupational therapy and what it is. I said what it wasn't. I got upset about OT being connected to PT. Always start where the person is. You'll see in the next role play it can go different, and that's actually a door that was opened.
The important thing is not to be offended by that question. I know as an OT community, when we hear that, it kind of tends to get our blood boiling. But it's a common mistake on the Hill, and you know, some of these staffers are maybe new to the healthcare field, and they really need the basics on what OT is. So don't be offended. Don't, you know, lash out because they didn't know, and just take the time to explain it in a concise and meaningful way from where you're coming from as an OT.
All right, so now we're going to do take two, and hopefully I do a little bit better than I did last time.
Yes.
We'll see how that goes. Hi, Tim Nanoff, the American Occupational Therapy Association.
Johnny Staffer.
Johnny Staffer. Very good. How are you?
Good, good.
Well, I'm a constituent. I'm from Pennsylvania, and I just wanted to come in and talk to you and let you know a little bit about occupational therapy. And are you from Pennsylvania?
I am. I'm actually from the district, so I came on board with the congressman right after college. So.
Okay. Well, I work at Thomas Jefferson University, and there's at their hospital, and so I have a connection there with Philadelphia. I just wanted to talk to you about occupational therapy. I got involved because I wanted to help people, particularly children. I had a sister with developmental disability. She had developmental delay when she was born. Okay. She received occupational therapy, and that's how I got involved with it.
Great.
What do you know? What do you know about occupational therapy?
A little bit. I have a friend of mine who's a physical therapist. I'm assuming it's kind of the same thing, similar.
OT and PT are very similar in relation to rehabilitation, and particularly like physical rehabilitation, like hands. OTs do a lot of physical rehab related to hand therapy, but OT is significantly broader than that in some ways. We get involved with behavioral health, more holistic, and what we focus on is impairments of function regardless of the cause. So if you see a physical therapist and you might have limited range of motion or strength, you can see a physical therapist and get that taken care of. An occupational therapist will work with whatever impairments you have and adapt you and facilitate your ability to be as independent and productive as possible. Okay. So it's a little bit more in-depth. It doesn't always happen at the same time as PT, but we can receive PT and OT at the same time, but they are uniquely different disciplines with a different focus and goals.
Great, thanks.
So I'm here today to talk to you about a couple of legislative issues, and one of them has been around for a long time. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Are you familiar with the Medicare therapy cap?
I'm relatively new to healthcare with the congressman, so I've heard about it in passing. I'd love some more information, clarification.
This is an issue that's been around since 1997. It limits the amount of therapy, occupational therapy, and there's a separate cap on physical therapy and speech therapy that Medicare beneficiaries can get. Okay. And it's really a beneficiary access issue as much as it is a payment issue from the provider side. If people can't get access to the therapy they need beyond the level of the therapy cap, they are going to be limited in their ability to recover from their injury or illness. So in 2013, the level is going to be $1,880. And if you've had any experience with a significant injury or illness, $1,880 in therapy is not very much at all. So people would be limited and not be able to regain their full function.
Now, what's the typical percentage of beneficiaries who would go over that threshold?
That percentage is about 15%. Across the board. The therapy cap, of course, targets the most vulnerable population. The oldest, the sickest, the people who really need the therapy the most aren't getting it. And there's about 640,000 people every year who will be denied therapy if Congress doesn't act. Now, the good thing is that the cap has been either stopped or there's been exceptions process every year since the cap was in place. So Congress has acted on this many times, and what we're asking, and what I'm asking you specifically, is that your boss will co-sponsor the legislation to repeal the cap.
Well, it sounds like something, you know, that my boss would be interested in. You know, he's very concerned with beneficiary access to services, you know, and I'll definitely take it to him and you know, just recommend that he think about signing on.
Great. Let me leave this with you then. It's the one-pager about it. The contact information is at the bottom. And can I follow up with you in about, would 2 weeks be good to follow up with you and sort of see what your boss said?
Absolutely. I should have a chance to talk to him by then.
Excellent. Great. All right. We'll stop there. We'd go on to one more issue probably in a full meeting. But as you can see, I tried to take the time to create some sort of relationship and bond with the person I was talking with, rather than just sort of roboting all the information out there. If he asked me a question that I didn't know the answer to, so let's say he said what percentage of beneficiaries are subject to the cap every year. You may not know that. It's not in our talking point. And so the answer to that question would be, I don't know, let me check. I'll have AOTA follow up with you, or I will find out from AOTA and then follow up with you. Any other thoughts?
It's just important, to make sure that you're having a conversation with the person. You don't want to go in and as Tim showed in the first meeting, just start rattling off, things that aren't coming across making sense, and trying to convey the point in a manner in such a way that the person will get what you're talking about, has an idea of where you're coming from and why is it important. You don't want to stick your face in your paper and not make a connection with that person. Personal connections are kind of the name of this game, and it's important to really connect with the person that you're talking to.
And sometimes when you're new to this process, it really is helpful to slow down just a little bit. You don't want to belabor it and be really slow in your presentation, but just simply to take a breath between discussions. When you transition from one issue to the other, it's okay to take a little bit of time, look at your paper. You're not expected to be a professional advocate at this point. You're expected to be an accurate and passionate advocate for what you're talking about, and that's really what's important. So with that, we're going to wrap up this podcast, but I wanted to remind you about September 11th at 7 p.m. We are going to be doing a national live discussion about Hill Day, what to expect, the issues, and then an interactive question and discussion section. So we look forward to talking with you there and then seeing you on September 24th. Thanks.